Hello everyone, welcome to this video series where we'll talk about Power Apps for business processes, and we will share some concepts on how you can structure your apps. In this specific series we'll discuss the option of using Microsoft Flow to profile and submit the process steps. A separate series will discuss a third-party microservices profiling platform called Agility that has a platform agnostic BPM as a service component built into it. By using Power Apps as the front end of your BPM, you get to leverage off of Microsoft's massive investment into the Power Apps platform that completely takes care of all of the front-end bits that the user interacts with. Business and process logic should then be kept separate from the front end as far as possible, as this will ensure for an agile, scalable, and reusable solution. Power Apps then changes its behavior during the various process steps, which means that you don't have to worry about creating multiple screens or complex formulas to simulate the business process flow. So what is a business process? It is a set of predefined steps that have to happen in a specific sequence in order to achieve a business objective. Each one of these steps have roles that are responsible for performing the actions or options during these steps. Each one of these steps have options which is used to redirect the process to the relevant next step. And then each option has actions or triggers that then send off emails or push notifications or integrate with systems and so on and so forth. So some other things to consider. First of all, failing to plan is planning to fail. That doesn't change. Power Apps doesn't fix that for you. You still need to do that. Then keep, like we mentioned earlier, keep business process and logic out of the front end as far as possible. And if you do that correctly, you'll have 60% of your next app ready before your boss even gives you the scope of the next project. Think in steps. Business processes work in steps. Not all fields should be visible during all steps. Different roles need different options to direct to the relevant next step. Then don't hardcode fields or anything to a specific username. We'll have to keep a workflow history of all of the different options that were actioned by the various roles for decision support and audit trace purposes. Then workflow notifications should notify the next person in the process. Role players shouldn't have to send emails around. Then we also want to reuse as much of the functions, things like email templates and formatting. We want to reuse as much of that as possible, and Flow is simply fantastic for that. Right, so what does it do and what does it look like? I'm going to jump into a Power App that is an example for a staff onboarding request. So what happens is the manager can request for a position to be filled in his or her department, and that request will then go through to HR for the necessary approvals and then gets assigned to the necessary or relevant recruiters. So if I add a new one, you'll see that at the top of the screen we've got a workflow section that basically informs the user about relevant information on the particular workflow step. So you'll see that it says the status of the request is new staff request. The relevant role is departmental manager. The relevant person is myself. And then the step instruction is please submit the relevant detail about the new employee. Just to trigger the mouse over about the new employee, and that could be, you could write quite a bit of additional information in there to make sure that the user gets help in context of the various workflow steps. If we go and click on the option to submit this request, immediately you'll see that the system tells us which fields are mandatory. So we're looking for a cook. He needs to be able to be good at cooking. 5 years, 4 years, and 5 years. And the motivation is we need another cook. You'll see the moment I submit this, it will give me a reference number, and it'll now in the back end notify the next person in line. So the next person, according to the business process, is our HR guy. So if I open up this request, you'll see that it was sent to Mike Kent, and it says the request has been submitted to you from the submit request option during the new staff request workflow step. So that just gives the person a little bit of additional information as to why did he actually receive this and what is he supposed to do. There we've got a job title, reference number, information as to who the manager is, what the current process step status is, and in this case it is HR approval. My role, or this guy's role, is human resources, and then there's also a link that takes him directly into the Power App and into the record that requires attention. Right, so that might take a second or two to just launch that Power App and find the record, and there we go. You'll see immediately at the top all of these fields have changed to what is now relevant to the human resources approval step. If Mike goes and modifies this request, or I'm doing it for Mike now, you'll see that the job title is locked. I can't change any of the existing fields that were specified during the previous workflow step. If Mike now approves this, the system will also tell him that he needs to specify the name of the recruiter. And if we go into here, specify the name of Tanya, and then submit this to Tanya. That's it. Mike is essentially finished with his step in the process. If he clicks back onto the home screen, he'll be able to see that this request is now assigned to Tanya and that the status is now with recruitment. If he tries and opens this request and he tries and modifies it, the system will tell him that he's not able to do so because he's not the manager of the responsible person. So, and you can easily use the Office 365 Users Connector for that to see who the manager for the responsible person is. Alright, so I'm just going to go back. I'm going to interact with the request on behalf of Tanya, seeing that according to this Office 365 tenant, I am her manager. So I can now go in with my user account, modify this, and then see the relevant options that recruitment can see. So again, you'll see that recruitment can't modify anything. If she goes into specify that recruitment has been successful, the system will force her to specify the first name, last name, and ID number of the candidate that was actually appointed or recruited. You'll also see that these fields weren't there earlier during the previous workflow steps, but because it's now in this step, these fields are visible. So what we want to do is we want to request information from HR, and we're going to say, please let me know what happened to the cooks. Right, if Tanya now submits this, this is going to send an email back to HR, so it's going to send an email back to Mike Kent. So open up as Mike Kent, and here it tells him that the request has been submitted to you from the request information HR option during the recruitment workflow step. Please review the request to fill a position. So there you can see all of the details, and then again he can go in directly into. What you'll notice is that there's an indication or attention indicator on the workflow history, and if he clicks on that, you'll be able to see all of the step comments that was generated from previous people in this process. It'll also show you all of the steps that it went through, as well as who the people were who interacted with the workflow process at that time. So this information stays in the system. This example is being stored in a SharePoint list. It doesn't need to be in the same data source as the actual data. It really doesn't matter. But the workflow history then becomes extremely important for reporting purposes, as you no longer report on the data, you actually report on the workflow history to understand how long it's been in various steps and so on and so forth. So thank you very much for your time today. Please join us in future videos where we'll be discussing what makes all of this possible, and we'll be diving into the areas in the back end like Flow and then JSON that makes all of these things possible in the front end. So please join us. In the meantime, if you have any questions or suggestions, please get in touch with me. My contact details are on the screen, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.